Good afternoon.
Hi, Megan.
Hi, I can hear you now.
Yeah, well, it helps when we're not muted.
Good afternoon. Happy Friday.
Yeah, good afternoon. So just as a heads up, we do have one brief agenda item. So I'll start our meeting like a typical board meeting, and then we'll do roll call, mission and vision statement, and then we'll get to our work session as quickly as possible.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
You can see pieces of Nick. Hi, Nick. There he is.
That is freaking me out, Nick.
He's a merchant. Okay, we are at noon, so I'll go ahead and call our special board meeting to order. With roll call, please note that Director Zander, Darling, Thaddeus, and myself are all here in person, and I see Carol Sand is joining virtually. Welcome, Carol. Can you hear us? Yep, I see her name on the list.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like she's muted and her camera's off, but that's okay. We can go ahead and get started and she'll join us when she can. Do I have a volunteer to read the mission and vision statement?
No.
Thank you.
At Decorah Community School District, we embrace student learning and well-being as our fundamental purpose. We will, in partnership with our students, family, and community, make the world a better place. The mission of the Decorah Community School District is learning, thriving, creating our legacy. The vision of the Decorah Community School District is Decorah Community School District will be a collaborative, innovative, learning-centered organization empowering students to embrace their personal strengths and create their future.
Thank you. And as mentioned, we have 2 agenda items today. So I'll accept a motion to approve today's agenda.
So moved. Second.
Okay, hearing a motion in a second. Any further discussion or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, 2 items on our agenda. The first is approval of propane bus bids. Tim, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. These are on our Pepple and Save like project, but it's over the $50,000. If we get these approved before April 1st, we potentially save $5,000-6,000 each versus after April 1st. And the prices came in below what we had originally budgeted for on our Pepple and Save document. So this is good news. We just wanted to make sure we followed the steps and got it approved before April 1st.
Yeah, because we had a robust conversation about propane buses before, and glad that
And we
we're attentive to these deadlines, so thank you. Chris.
typically do 1 or 2 buses a year, so.
Well, we did have a pretty thorough discussion previously. So I would make a motion that we approve the 2 purchases as recommended.
I'll second that.
Okay, hearing a motion in a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay.
Sorry, I'm late, and I will just add my support for this. I'm very supportive of purchasing these buses.
Thanks, Carol. Good to see you.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll move for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, the second item on our agenda is a work session. I had personally requested this work session because at our last regular meeting, the board had approved the enhancement of our elementary school project to include a gym big enough to hold high school events. And since that regular board meeting, myself and others on the board have gotten some questions, and I know that our contracted teams are with us today. Welcome, everyone. I felt like a conversation together today as a whole board would be really important because as we are approached with questions in the community, we want to be your biggest cheerleaders, and we had some questions that we'd like addressed before you move into the next phase of meeting with teachers in the district. And again, I just want to start our conversation with a celebratory attitude. It's a huge accomplishment to pass this bond in our community. We're so grateful for the partnership and contracted work and all the hard work and planning that's gone in so far. And I'm really hopeful that this will be an incredible project for Decorah, but also a standout project in the state of Iowa. So thanks all for being here. Oh, Nick, I think you're muted. First,
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're very excited and very excited with where we're at with the design currently. And what we have a whole bunch of stuff so we can react to any questions. But from a high level, we thought maybe we would start a little bit by looking at the design schedule, if you wanted to see that. Do you have that open? Is that?
that sounds great. So Nick Hildebrandt was just speaking. Nick and Patty are joining us from Emergent Architects in Cedar Falls, Iowa.
And before they pull it up, I will introduce myself. I am Megan. I lead our education market at Myron Construction. And so I am on for the team today. Tom, who is our customer executive who manages the pre-construction process, he is on spring break. So I am here to fill in any gaps and to provide feedback back. But on this project, I'm leadership oversight as well as communications.
Thanks for being here, Megan.
And I'll introduce myself. I'm Tom Foldis with KED Bluestone Engineering. We're the mechanical, electrical, plumbing technology design firm on the project, working with Nick and his team. And yeah, and I'm representing just the infrastructure side of this.
Right.
So are you guys able to see that schedule that's up there?
Yes.
So very, very high level, as the bond issue passed, we had known programmatically what the needs were at a very high level from the district. And so the schematic design kind of starts with going back to exploration of that program, and then also really digging deep into the site. And so those have been some of the things that have been going on since the passing of the bond issue, along with assembling our team internally. So we hire on structural engineers, mechanical, electrical, such as Tom, civil engineers, a lot of those different people that are a part of that. I'm not sure what that is.
Oh, I apologize here, guys.
So as part of the schedule, that has been some of the stuff that we have been working on. Where we currently are at is we have submitted a schematic design package to Myron, who's the construction manager at risk on the project. And the purpose of that is for them to do an initial project scope review and budget review. And so it keeps like popping off and separating. And so they are in the middle of taking a look at that from a high level budget standpoint. And so there's a lot of different checkpoints in which they do that through this process. So we have come to a schematic design that took also a little bit longer, because as we were doing site review and discussions with city, we have a storm sewer that is running through the site at an angle that we are having to work through. So we came up with some options to save the district money on how we would reposition that, which kind of changed the layout of the building. And then also through the process, you guys informed us of wanting to look at the possibility of this gym expansion. And so that involved kind of a complete kind of redesign of that expansion of the plan that we had came up with. And so that schematic design now has been delivered to Myron. And so they will be working on that budget. We'll be seeing that in the next few weeks. The other work that has been going on, and why Tom is here in case we have any questions, we have been participating with Willdan, which is employed by Alliant Energy as part of their energy review program, which helps us look at different mechanical, electrical, lighting, building envelope, natural light, daylighting situations within the building, and shows us payback and costs, so that we can really hone in on the best way to spend the dollars for the district moving forward, as far as how it comes in utilities and utility cost and rebates and geothermal systems and all of those things. And that is also added some time, as there are some challenges as we look at the possibility of a geothermal system, if that's even a possibility on this site. And I don't know, Tom unmuted, so I'm thinking he wants to say something about that.
Yeah. And so, and also in addition to the White Group or the Willdan Group, we have also engaged with the Central Energy Districts of Iowa, with Abby at that group, to also get their expertise and their help in terms of kind of wrestling some of the sustainability efforts on the MEP systems kind of down. So where we're at right now on the MEP side, probably the biggest challenge we have is just trying to wrestle down the feasibility of using geothermal at the site, because as you all are aware, the site lies within the impact crater zone, which creates a little bit of a geology issues for us in terms of soil conductivity, well drilling, and just how to employ a geothermal system in this environment. And we're in the late stages of kind of figuring out the answers to all that. And I saw there was an agenda item to talk about that, so I'll save the details till then. But we're hoping that by this time next week, we're going to have our recommendations to everyone, to what we recommend going forward based on everything we found. The other issue we have too is just more on a political end. One of the incentives behind employing a geothermal system has been the Inflation Reduction Act, and that unfortunately is a big question mark right now, whether those funds are available. So, depending on whether or not those funds are available, it kind of pushes us in one direction or another from a feasibility standpoint, budget wise. So really high level, we can get into some more details here later in the agenda.
A little bit more about the schedule then, and as we move forward, we next week have what we call design development meetings, and so the schematic design, we would say, is completed. That package has been sent to Myron. We also can share that with the district. And then we will go into design development, and this is where we have 2 days set up to meet with all of the individual teachers and staff and go through specifics of all of their spaces in there. And so Patty and Tim are putting together the schedule of all the teachers teachers groups and PE and site and gymnasium, all of the different people that we need to meet through that, as well as the consultant team that we bring to those meetings to listen in and ask the questions on how each one of those spaces is going to work, all the things that need to be in those. And that process is actually a 3 to 4 meeting process. So DD1 is the first round of meetings with this group. Then we will go back, make changes. The whole design of the building kind of adapts from the feedback from the users. And we'll come back with a second round, and then it does just like the title says, the design develops. And so it develops further and further and further. And we start to integrate structural, we start to integrate mechanical systems, lighting, all of those types of things until we get towards the end of that. We also will have a color group that will help look through finishes. That is kind of towards the end of this process. So what you're seeing here is the design development schedule as we work through that, which ends up in being down there at about 6:13. So that's when that we get reviews and feedback from the cost estimate and deliverable that is provided by Myron after they review the set at the end of this process.
So I can just briefly explain what Myron does at the end of each of these design milestones. So as Nick talks through what schematic design is, design development, construction documents, Myron is a partner to provide budgeting as the process, as the design progresses, so that the board is making informed decisions. Particularly, like one example would be the gym or the geothermal system. So the district can make decisions that are based on budget and help manage the scope with the budget. So right now, what our team is doing is taking those schematic designs and doing quantity takeoffs. So using a software program to look at how the building is built, making sure that we're allocating the correct amount of concrete for foundations, masonry for walls, steel for walls, drywall for interior walls. Each component will have a number to it. And then Myron is using historical data that we have created based off of extensive experience in the education market, as well as then reaching out to local subcontractors and trade partners to get a second set of eyes. So we have our number that we're estimating, but then we reach out to trade partners for them in each particular area. So for example, if it's the concrete, Myron is putting a number to the concrete, and then we'll also have a trade partner put a number to it. So you have two sets to compare it to when making those decisions. And we continue to do that along as the design progresses. And that's just one example of how budgeting happens, but that's what our team is doing. And that takes about 3 weeks to compile. Once we've taken our historical data, reached out to trade partners, and that's what these dates show, is just an accountability of when Myron owes you numbers and when the district gets to see them, so decisions can be made.
Other things that Myron has been helping with, we've had high-level structural conversations, and so we've talked through precast as a construction material versus masonry versus steel, and how that can affect the schedule or buildability of the project. And so there's other things as well that they're constantly visiting with us about on the best way to deliver the project at the best value for the district. Is there any questions on the process, high level meetings, how that's all going and how we're progressing?
Nick and Patty, so the schedule we have is like roughly, half-hour blocks, 45-minute blocks with teams for 2 days. That's DD1. Is that what DD2 and DD3 looks like, or is what do DD2 and DD3 look like?
So Tim, DD2 and DD3 are going to be very, very similar to that format that we sent through the schedule there. The goal with these meetings, though, is that we gain a lot of the information at the first design development meeting. So when we get to the second and third meetings, we would still be meeting with all the staff, but we would not need to be meeting as long as what the first meeting was. So we would have shortened meetings, touch base with everyone, review, the design development process is our time to listen. So we listen and say, this is what we heard. This is the feedback that we got. We come back and present the plan changes, some of the equipment that's in the room, and review it with everyone. Hey, did we interpret this correctly? Is this what you were thinking? And so that's kind of the step-by-step process as we go through and refine the design going through this.
So the last meeting might be half the amount of time as these first two. As far as meeting length.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
You bet.
I'm wondering if the teachers and staff will be given, provided any materials before the meeting. I think before you mentioned you might have some questions or surveys, and will they have access to the schematic design ahead of time so they can study it and kind of think about their traffic flows of students, et cetera, with the schematic design?
So we have already sent out surveys and questionnaires to each of the staff members that Tim has gotten back to us already. As far as the schematic design deliverable, I have sent that to Tim. I'm gonna leave that up to his discretion if he wants to distribute that to the staff as well. But as part of this first meeting, there's gonna be the first 5 minutes probably that we're going to be reviewing and explaining the plan to them and how the building flow is intended to work. So they will have an overview of everything that's gonna go on.
And it's you know, some of the spaces like an art room and a music room, those are kind of one-off spaces, and we can surely share the kind of plans for their spaces specifically. But there's some different strategies with like the pre-K rooms and the kindergarten rooms. It's when we typically do this isn't every classroom is completely different across that. It's more to build a consensus of a first grade room. What does that look like? What does a second grade room look like, and a pre-K room? And so those in general, we'll try to meet with a group to talk about that, and then they have to come to a bit of a consensus, because it's, you know, this is a 100 year long building, and not just, hey, Mrs. Smith, that's in the third pre-K room wants this type of cabinetry. So we want to make sure that we listen to everybody and they get a chance to kind of see it, digest it. We don't typically like send plans home with everyone for them to just sit and mull over a long time, because sometimes it can be, well, what is that? What is this? What is that? And they might spend more time kind of debating with themselves what they're actually getting versus hearing from us what the room layout is like. Also in the meetings, in this first set of meetings, we'll be fairly specific about looking at a floor plan and how kind of it works diagrammatically and how big it is, the windows, that type of stuff. But in DD2, we'll start to show it 3-dimensionally. So we'll kind of pan around and look at the room. We'll show the cabinetry on the walls. We'll show the marker boards. We'll show the windows. And in like DD set 1, not all that detail is there, but by DD set 3, you know, we might have all of the finishes in the room, and they can see almost exactly what it's going to start to look like when it's finished.
At this point, how open are we to making changes in the schematic design as far as placement of classrooms, placement of the special rooms, other locations, cafeteria, et cetera? If you get suggestions from the staff on possible changes, are we open to that at this point in the design process?
I would say there's a small window right now. After this meeting, if we look at the design and there's some very serious objections to where things are located or adjacencies that really need to be integrated into the design, we can certainly start to shift rooms around. But like completely laying out the design of the building differently than what it is now would be kind of a completely new schematic design at this point. And so, you know, like huge shifts would take us some serious time and brainpower to kind of manage that, and really is a redesign of the current building.
So Nick, I think it might be helpful if you toss the schematic of the
Yeah.
new building up, and we can maybe turn our attention that way.
Yeah, you bet. We'll kind of walk you through that here. Maybe zoom in a little bit so that they see. So this is the schematic design floor plan as it currently is. So a little bit of color coding here. The pink is the office type of space. The green area up to the left there, that's music and art. The yellow are the general classrooms, along with some of the spaces between the toilets and the locker space. Purple is special education needs. The orange is the athletic there with the gymnasium and the locker rooms. And the blue is the media center. So in general, up and to the right is where you would enter the building. That is the main entrance. You would be able to check into the front office there. So that would be where the reception secretaries would be. Down that hallway then would be principals and offices, nurse, workroom at the end, some staff toilets, all of those types of spaces through that. There's a bit of a back door to that, as you can see, to get to that staff workroom. There's also a set of toilets behind that door, which is really large to be able to handle the number of occupants for the gymnasium. And so as you enter the building through that white space, if you don't check into the office, you continue going, and that large white area right there is the commons of the school. It's really the heart of the school. That will be where lunch will be at. The little yellow area to the left of that is a social stairs that brings you up into the second floor. So there's a second floor above the area to the left, which is where the second grade is. And on the right-hand side of that, there are stairs that take you up to that second floor. If I go kind of back to the beginning of the commons, off to your right is concession stand. That is right there, and that is for hosting a high school level event or tournaments or anything along those lines. Back behind that is the music classroom, and so that's a taller space that has an office right off of it, located right there. To the left of that is the art room with the kiln room. Both those rooms have some amazing views to the bluff then across the street and across the river there. And as I continue on, then we have the media center, which has the same thing with transparency to the bluff. And then the art room and the media center have transparency then into the commons. So that creates this bit of kind of visual connection to the outdoors through that space. Also, that commons has a clear story window up above there that kind of lines the edge of that, which brings natural light into the center of the building, and it's nice northern natural light, so it won't be like glaring and those types of things. If I go back kind of to the front entrance, I could take a left and go down that hallway. This takes me to the lower education classrooms. So the ones on the south in plan, those are the kindergarten rooms. The kindergarten rooms currently are showing some casework in there. They have a toilet dedicated to each one, and then there's a sort of locker space that's between, and then that takes them outside with doors directly outside. And then they're able to go over there to the east to the playground area that is specific to the pre-K and kindergarten. So the classrooms on the other side of the hallway in that wing then are the pre-K classrooms, which are set up exactly currently like the kindergarten classrooms with the locker space between. They can spill out and go over to the playground area. The rest of that wing then, the pink is the PLC, so that's a teacher collaboration space where they're able to kind of leave things lay out, talk about how they're going to deliver education. There's a level 3 room up above that, which has a wash bay. It has a toilet. We could have washer and dryer in there, all of those types of things. And then we have 2 resource rooms in there for behavioral disorders and digging deeper into that program on what all needs to be into those 2 classrooms. And those are kind of located right specifically on that corner because they might be bringing students over from 1st and 2nd grade to use that, as well as the pre-K and kindergarten into that space. So then as we get to kind of the athletic area, this is and the physical education area, this is the gymnasium there. That what we're currently showing is 1,300 and roughly around 1,300 seats in there. And so the right-hand side is a larger bank of bleachers, and then the left-hand side is a smaller bank. And then there would be chairs and a scoring table that would be able to be set up along the court right there. Then just to the south of that, there's 4 small locker rooms. Those locker rooms come directly off the gym, so we don't have any like corridor space that we're wasting to get to those. And then they also have doors to go outside. So those doors then would allow like the tennis people to be able to come in and use those locker rooms for those types of events. Some of those smaller spaces, as we go to the right, that's a gym storage space right there and there. We've got a PE teacher's office, and then we have like a coaches / referees room that has its own toilet and shower space in there. I'm going to continue on before allowing any questions and just catching my breath there. Back behind the gym then, that gray area, that would be a utility entrance. So this is where the kind of back of the school is. We have to bring the utilities in somewhere. This is where that would enter. Then it also would have some storage in there. Up above that is receiving and storage in there. And then the green up above is the kitchen. So we would have walk-in refrigerator freezer there. We would have dry storage. We would have all the prep kitchen in the back, and then serving out in the front there. That's enough for 2 lines to come in and come back out straight out to the front of that space. And then just to the left of that, that is the dishwashing station. And just below that, it would be where the office is for the staff that works in there. Then as I go to the left a little bit more, this is the 1st grade wing right there. And then there's an entrance from the backside there. So the way it's currently planned is the bus traffic would be on to the southwest over there. And then the parent drop off is in the northeast over there. And so students will be filling in. They can come in through that set of doors. They could come into the gym and those back doors if they wanted. And then there's stairs right inside that door that could take them upstairs to go to the 2nd grade wing. As I kind of work my way around that, we've got special ed rooms, a reset room kind of down there in the corner. All of those classrooms are the exact same size along there. Outside of that space is small group rooms, some breakout space. The corridor is widened to allow for some breakout one-on-one spaces outside of that. Those bathrooms right there would then serve the 1st grade. And then that pink area up above there is the 1st grade PLC. And so that would be where those teachers can go and collaborate. And that's directly off the media center, which also has an ability to get in from the 1st grade wing. The classroom just up above that then is what we're calling an exploratory classroom. So that would be like a STEAM room or a STEM room. There would be some sinks and stuff in there, maker space right off the library. And it can allow for the 1st graders to come in there and do some science-based things, take apart clocks, those different types of things. I can quickly also show you the 2nd floor of this. this has a little bit more, Patty's got some of the
Yeah.
titles in here, so you can see the left here is the second floor. You can see the stairs that come up, and then those are those kind of social stairs that kind of spill down. There's a little collaboration space there that we're calling the nest. That nest is gonna have a kind of look like a eagle's nest is what we're hoping for. This space is really set up the same as below. So it's got the special ed classrooms, the second grade classrooms, and then the exploratory room with small group rooms below that, and then the second grade PLC. The toilets for this space is over the kitchen. And so that large gray area that you're seeing there is also over the kitchen, and that is gonna be the mechanical penthouse. So that will have a lot of the mechanical equipment that serves the majority of the building. So that is a very high level of walking through the entire design. Is there a site plan that kind of has a
I
part
can
of
get
this?
it open quick.
If you guys have questions about the floor plan or would like to see the site plan, we would love to talk more about, you know, kind of reasons why it's laid out like it is. And we really like it. We're excited about how it flows. And also the look of it, we can show you elevations off of the schematic design, but this is kind of some preliminary site design. So this would be the western side of the site. So this pull off here is the bus drop as you come in there. There's some parking there. There's showing this would be the first and second grade playground area right here. So there's a mixture of hard spaces, some play space over there, and then green space integrated into a really neat layout there with some hard surface playground spaces. The space up above to the north of the two-story wing is like a little space that they would come out and be able to come over to the playground area. And also maybe a balcony up above for the second grade to kind of be outside for a piece of that. And then as you go a little farther to the right, that's right out in front of the media center on that side. So as I look then at the other side, so this is the pre-K kindergarten wing. So they're able to spill out into their own playground area. Again, some play area, some green space, some hard surface, and then the green area. There's a small building there beside the tennis courts that is for storage, as well as kind of an entrance into the tennis court area. And then this is the 6 tennis courts over here with a little bit of seating areas to be able to kind of sit there and watch on that. And then you can see this is the pull-in area. You would pull in, pull around, come through that drop off, and you can drop off all along that side there with sidewalk all along there.
Thinking way back to the original drawings we were working with when we were on the facility committee a long time ago and what we shared with the public, there's some pretty strong changes from that to this, and that's totally fine. But some questions that are in my mind as well. So I'm gonna kind of point at the 2 elementary folk in the room and ask a question. What's the kindergarten and pre-K use the same outdoor space?
They can, they would just have to follow the preschool regulations, which would be the most strict. So we would work with scheduling and things like that, but as long as you follow the preschool regulations, that would work.
Okay. So hypothetically, we were building a playground for 3-year-olds because we have to serve our.
That's right, that's going to
our
be your
students
tricky
with-
part, is
yeah.
like your drop zones and all of that are going to have to be at the level that 3-year-olds can use them. With it, yeah.
Now, the kindergarten could use the first and second grade playground. They would just have to walk farther to get there.
And scheduling.
And scheduling,
Yeah, the scheduling would be a big one.
Yeah, they would either have to walk the entire way through the building or the entire way around the building, the way I'm looking at it. So I see some odd quirks there. I mean, I don't think it's no deal breakers, but it seems a little quirky, but I know back to the facility committee timing, there was a lot of talk about how much the community wanted green space, a lot of green space. I would say from my viewpoint on this doesn't have a lot of green space. So just being conscientious of what our design looks like versus what the community told us that we wanted. We're probably we're missing a little bit of that target perhaps. But the big one I want to talk about is the gym. So I was in the elementary school yesterday. I observed kindergarten in a TK gym class. So the kindergarten class was in John Klein in their 40x60 gym. And then the TK class was across the street at the high school practice gym. They did the exact same lesson. I mean, I don't know if lesson's the right word to call it, but the same activities. They are vastly different between those two spaces. So 5-year-olds running around the current John Klein gym, space is a little tight, but it's, those 5-year-olds understood, like they could knock each other's bowling pins down, they could tag each other and like actually catch each other. No one was ever going to not be caught. We shift over to the practice gym at the high school. There's a little bit younger kids, a little bit more special needs in that classroom as well, but those kids can't catch each other. That gym is not built for them. And what we have designed here is monumentally larger than that practice gym. There were some, like, being able to talk to the kids and being able to teach in that space at the high school and that practice gym was hard. Because they can spread. You got a kid who's a runner, you got a kid all the way to the corner. You've got balls going around, you've got balls 40 feet, 50, 60 feet away from where the kids are. So when I look at our current building design, I see an issue with, we've built a gym that doesn't serve the needs of the elementary students who use the building. Now, I'm okay with building a competition gym, but I don't think that should sacrifice the elementary gym and the elementary students. So I'd like to raise the question, should we be building a separate second elementary gym solely for the elementary students? The same way we're building first grade classrooms for first grade students, an art room for kindergarten through second grade art, a music room for kindergarten through second grade music, a library for kindergarten through second grade students. I think we should be building a gym for pre-K, 3-year-olds, up through our 8-year-olds, our second grade students who'd be using this building.
Aaron, thank you. And thank you for your time spent observing classes. I know that we have John Hines here. I've had many conversations with you over the last couple of weeks. Ron, Tim, and I coincidentally had a meeting at John Klein a couple of weeks ago, and we're standing in the John Klein gym. As we are designing this building to include preschool through second grade, also knowing some of the challenges we have with preschool, I'm imagining 10 years down the road, what if we have a preschool that we want to expand our services and provide before and after care? And I'm imagining how dreamy it would be to have a recreation space for those youngest learners, to have a space for physical education use, but also before and after school use, potentially. if the big gym was being used by the big kids. And I'm wondering, knowing that we have a big gym and the big gym activities can happen in the big gym, I'm wondering, is this an opportunity for us to really hone in and add an exceptional early childhood space that maybe doesn't, I'm wondering what that ideal size is and where that could fit into this plan. I know that the big gym is an enhancement on the project. I'm wondering, is there room to consider, as Aaron suggested, to have those two different spaces and meet the needs of all ages that would use this facility?
I guess I would like to visit with whoever we would like to talk about what physical education looks like for your pre-K through second grade. That is what the design development conversations are for. And that will be what we will be doing when we go into the design development meetings next week. There are opportunities to separate space within a gymnasium with curtains, with barriers of sorts to create environments in there that if you feel that a certain amount of space is correct or makes it better for the educational environment, we would love to have those conversations, and we'll have those conversations. I have not done elementary schools where I have heard, that, well, we need exactly 4,000 square feet or 7,000 square feet or 2,000 square feet. And so if there is information like programmatically that they would like us to visit, that's kind of part of the reason for the sheets that we sent out, was to get some of that information beforehand so that we can prep these spaces for the needs that the people see are there programmatically for each space. Some of the examples that I have seen and we have put into elementary schools would be rock climbing walls, ninja U courses. We've done things that drop from the ceiling that are batting cages or separate areas off. We've done adjustable hoops that allow for younger kids to use them. And there's a lot of things out there that can be done with equipment and gym equipment and things that come out that allow physical education to happen in spaces. Most of the younger elementary education teachers that I know and having kids and stuff, they do bounce around to different areas. I know that they go to wrestling rooms and they do different games that go across, so they can be on their hands and knees and crawl around. They go outside, they go to playgrounds, and so there's, I guess I'm open to any challenge of creating an amazing physical education space for the pre-K 2 students. And I think we have the luxury of having enough space in a gymnasium and other space that we can allow all different types of learning in the physical education realm to happen.
Nick, could you?
wanna-
I was just going to ask a quick question. What is the typical size in lower elementary buildings right now for a gymnasium?
I mean, most of that is dependent on the number of students that are in there. The physical education size probably comes down to what you want to have for them for opportunities to learn about. So most districts, most places we're at, they don't want to build a gym smaller than the size of one basketball court. And so one basketball court is about, it's 84 by 50 for the court itself. So that's about 5,000 square feet. And then you have to have enough space around it to be able to have it be a basketball court. So that it's probably in the 6,000 to 7,000 square foot range. And then there's all the support spaces that need to be provided for that. So there's typically a lot of storage needs. There's typically an office for the PE teacher. And then a lot of times there's sound reinforcement. So there's a little closet for them to be able to have their mic, which allows for them, so we can put speakers within the space so that they can talk to all the students if they're spread out in the gymnasium. And then that I would say is probably a minimum. If like for some examples, the elementaries that are done in Cedar Falls and done in Waterloo, where they have, a pre-K all the way through 6th grade, most of them are pretty close to a double gymnasium like this. Waterloo, when we were doing all those elementary schools, they would also have one end that would open up into the commons area, and then it would function as like a stage. And so then they could bring the people in and have music performances, have other types of performances. And so I would say the key to all of this is flexibility, right? It's the flexibility of all of the spaces to function in many different ways. And that is typically the strategy for most all the schools we design nowadays, no matter whether it's elementary or middle school or high school.
Mhm. And could you tell me what the size is of the gymnasium as you have it designed right now in the plan?
I think it's
Just under
13,000.
13.
Yeah, it's right at 13,000.
So I'm gonna play compare and contrast for a minute. We currently have a 2,400 square foot gymnasium. We're going to quintuple the size of our gym and assume it's still going to work effectively for the same size children.
What would be ineffective about it? What do you feel is ineffective about more space?
More space is problematic. It's more room for these kids to fling to the corners, to be unable to. I throw my ball, it gets lost. It's 25 yards away from me. Shoot, now I'm gonna spend all gym class going to get my ball because I can't shoot very well. Or I can't throw very well, or I can't aim very well, and now my ball is forever away from me. Or I'm trying to play tag, but we're essentially trying to play in a green space worth of tag area. I'm never gonna catch anybody except the slowest kid in the class. I don't see bigger being better. I understand the concept of flexibility. I know you could drop curtains. It's still gonna have issues with sound, with usability, and I don't see this space being optimal. And I'm gonna say optimal is like the worst thing we should do is build a space that is the same as we currently have. I don't want to do that. But this is like colossal. I mean, we're talking about a gym that's bigger than every elementary classroom on that first floor put together.
this is a mammoth space, and put 4-year-olds in a classroom together or in a gym this size, this is too big. I think we need a separate space. And along with that, I think building a competition gym like this is fine. Why is it not on the high school side of the building where the high school parking is also at? And can it be separate from the rest of the building? So this new gym, this expansion that we're talking about, can we build that gym, but closer to the high school and separate from everything else? Because I don't want people to be wandering through the corridors in the school when they're trying to go to the bathroom. I don't want them wandering through the school corridors and getting to understand the building.
So the challenge with the number of seats and the size of the gymnasium is we have to provide space for them to spill out into, which we are doubling with the commons. And so if you separate this off and it's not part of that, we would have to build another commons that would be separate. And then we need a significant amount of toilets. And so both of those stacks of toilets are required. And you can see even the female toilets wrap around in the one plan because there's roughly like 10 or is there 10 or 11 in that one? Because we end up needing about 15 or 16 women's toilets to host an event that of this size at this location. And so the strategy of this current plan is that commons doubles as the lobby space for a gymnasium for large events.
I'm gonna
Also,
apologize and cut you off, Nick.
sure.
So my big question mark to all of this is, we passed a bond to build an elementary school. And what I see us doing is building a varsity athletic complex that happens to have an elementary school built around it. I think we're missing the point on what the bond was passed to do, which was build an elementary school. And what we've done is we've stuck a basketball court and now we've got classrooms around it. Now, we already know we have to build tennis courts. We're shifting those. Could this not be closer to the tennis courts? Could that joint bathroom space you're talking about not be utilized for the tennis courts? And then we're talking about utilizing spaces more effectively for the age-appropriate students that they're intended for. Along with that, maybe this is an opportunity to expand and give something a better space for the community that has easier access for community usage. Not during the school day, perhaps, but maybe if it's separate and it's off next to the tennis courts, it's its own facility, maybe. But right now I see us building a competition level basketball court and we're shoveling elementary around it. That's not the purpose of what this building project is. This gym does not serve the purpose of the elementary 3-year-old to 8-year-old students that it's built for.
The
20 varsity basketball players from the high school, sure. But it's not serving the purpose of the 300, 400 elementary students in that building every day.
I would say that I disagree with it, that comment. I believe that the space can be allocated in the gymnasium that can serve the students. I believe that it can be sectioned off in a way that actually might allow more things to happen, that such as indoor recess time, different types of activities that.
You're already gonna be able to do these things because you already have a common space and you'll have a separate gym just for these kids. We've split that apart. This already exists without this larger space. I think we're fighting to try to force in a full-size basketball court into an elementary school. It should be separate.
Aaron, can you? He did a great job listening to you. Nick, go ahead. Continue.
Just again, reinforcing the possibility that there's flexibility in the way in which this can be done and the way in which it can be used. Typically, I would suggest putting a curtain down this that would take it down to the size that we would put typically in a school. But then it also allows for 2 educational spaces, and since it's of its size, it probably could be divided even more, as you were talking about, which would allow indoor recess, physical education, all of those things to happen. And bringing out the first, you're talking about the flexibility and what it's being built for. There certainly was lots of conversations in the public meetings about what more can this site and this school do and be for our community. And the gymnasium and rec leagues and tournaments and those types of things were talked about over and over in those meetings about how we can best serve the community as a whole. And so it is a balance of what's provided in the space and how it serves the people that are in it every day and the students that use it after hours and the community that uses it at night and on the weekends. And I believe that you can have a solution like you're talking about, where you take a gym and the locker rooms and the toilets and have that be a separate building, and you would shrink this down. But I would not even shrink this gym down much less than to 2/3 of what it is. The previous design had it at 10,000 square feet, and that was so that it could function as practice for those club events, those different time events. If I were to not allow any of those things to happen, which is more what like Waterloo Schools did when they did it, we're probably down in the 7,000 square feet range or something like that. And so what the process here is to really make it integrated with the school as a whole, and so that it functions well how it's designed now. I would argue that I think it functions really well. If we were to try to take the gym out of here, we would still probably try to have the commons in the center here, because that's really where all the students want to gather. The site is a little bit restrictive, so we can't just like take this over here or put it to the north. We have to really balance trying to get natural light to all those classrooms. And so spaces like the commons and the gymnasium get put in the center because we are trying to get natural light to all those classrooms and things on the outside. And if we end up attaching it, it makes it more difficult. Like for instance, if you take that pre-K kindergarten wing and you flip it with the gymnasium, all of a sudden half of those classrooms are internal classrooms. Right. And the site, it might not appear that the site is restrictive, but you mentioned it already, that if it appears like it doesn't have green space now, look at how condensed this plan is right now. If we spread this out even more, all we're going to end up doing is taking away exterior green space and playground and parking and all of those things on this site. just some of the things as far as the reason the layout is kind of the way it is now. Also putting the gymnasium on the north side, which I'm not sure, I think your assumption is that feels like it's closer to the high school. Most of the views are to the north. And so we try to have that be more, and you have a media center, an art classroom, STEM room. They like to have northern light. They like to have views. And so it felt wrong to take 100-foot long windowless gymnasium and put it on the north side and then have all of those spaces stare at the back of the buildings on Water Street. And so that was really a key design aspect as we were laying this out.
I apologize. I have to head out for a 1 o'clock meeting, but I did just want to bring up the point that when this larger gym space was shared with the board, it was estimated at a $3 million-ish price tag. That does not, so that was from going from the original gym to this larger gym. So if you were to put two separate, you cannot use that as an equation. So just wanted to state that cost would imply it would go up higher if there were two separate spaces.
Megan, can I ask you a quick clarifying question on that? When you came up with that budget, were you considering the locker rooms and et cetera, all of that space, or were you considering more just the gymnasium space?
That's a good question. That original gym was designed for, I think Nick said 10,000 square feet, plus there was some locker room space.
Yep. So we did a quick program exercise where we added the additional bathrooms, the concession stand, the additional gymnasium, the additional storage and training room, and then all of the locker rooms that would be required for that. And that's where the additional square footage came from that Myron priced.
And can you remind us again of what that price is?
It's really a high level square foot right now. It was on the high end, 3-ish million.
Thank you, Megan.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Megan. Nick, can you talk about one of the other points that was brought up in our last regular board meeting was safety. You mentioned, I'm just imagining traffic flow. It's nice to know that there is an entrance, like I'm imagining kids that are coming into practice, maybe there could be future protocols developed that they enter in through that tennis entrance potentially without going through the school. Can you talk a little bit about safety or like
how it functions? Yeah.
How it functions when there is a community event, when the gym is full of people?
Okay, so we do this for most schools, all schools that we design is, what are the modes of operation during certain times? The way I explained it to you and the way the layout worked was really how it works from a day-to-day standpoint during class. If we are to have an event in the gymnasium, they would use the main entrance. That's sized for the number of people. They would come into the commons. There's 2 bathrooms, as mentioned, would be available for that. The concession is available for that. The bathroom to the left. What we've explored here is, if you see the dashed line on the left where the boys and girls room is, we looked at the possibility we could like completely separate that off with a drop curtain that would come down and separate that space. But we would need to then add a bit of an egress corridor to get us out of that commons. So the challenge is if we have 1,300 people in that gym and they have to exit into the commons. And then there's 2 other doors down to the south. So they would exit out to the bottom left or to the bottom right. The wing to the right, you can see we have that where we can either separate that off there, or we talked about even being able to close that entire corridor off along that side of the school. So really, when they would get into the school, the other thing, at the top of the stairs, there would be a gate that also would come down that would separate that space. So during a night event or practice, they would come in, be able to get into the commons, get into the gymnasium. They can get into the locker rooms because those are directly off of the gymnasium. All that storage space, all of those are directly off of that. That corridor that kind of leads out, that's where the refs would be. That could take you outside for the tennis. The tennis would be able to come to those locker rooms from the backside. And so that's really then how it would function after hours. So the corridor and the pods to the left would be closed off, and the educational pods to the right would be closed off. And so that allows then for circulation and the common space to be used for events like that.
So, but with that in mind, you're saying like you gotta shut off the first grade wing, we're gonna have to drop that barrier down at 3:30? When practice starts, then how are the teachers getting around their own building to be able to do what they need to do after school? I'm a little lost how this functions if we're thinking about this being able to be closed off, because practice happens when teachers are still doing their work.
Mm-hmm. And I guess that's a good question. How do your buildings function now when practice happens? Are you closing all access down to all the rest of the building at the middle school and the high school? Or how does that function currently?
Well, before that, I would say I think there's a big difference because middle school students practice at the middle school gym. The high school students practice at the high school gym. These are not elementary students practicing in the elementary school gym. This is high school students coming to an elementary school to practice or compete. I think there's a big difference between that, the logical assumption on how a building is used and what we're forcing it into. And I think that's got to be at play in this whole conversation as well.
To answer your question on that, with the middle school, all of the classrooms in the middle school that are regular classrooms are on the second and third floor. And so they are closed, the doors are locked then for going up and down, and the teachers all have keys to be able to get in and out of the doors. So there aren't gates like we're talking about here. So that gym, and also there is a gate that's closed off to Carrie Lee. So the design of that is different than this in that that gymnasium really is set off at the side of the building so that they're separate, as you know, separate entrances in and out. And so it does function well for after school and weekend traffic to not be able to access any other part of the building. And I'm agreeing with Aaron that this is problematic, even though I just want to say at the beginning, boy, there's so many things about your design that I really love. And I don't think we said that after you went through it. I mean, there's just a lot to love here. So thank you for your really excellent design and for listening and putting things in places that that I think really will function well. When we did vote on this gymnasium at our last meeting, we did not have this in front of us. I really do think that having an elementary sized gym in the middle of the school, especially your idea that you've used before with moving having a movable wall where you could use it as a stage to the commons. Oh, that just sounds fantastic. I do feel like having a competition sized gym in the middle of the building really is problematic. First and foremost for as John Hines has made us aware since our last meeting of the developmental needs of those younger students. Also the teacher time and effort of having to take down and put up whatever equipment they're using for a unit because there's going to be practice or competitions in the gym after school or evenings or weekends. The lines on the gym that would need to be permanent lines for basketball rather than the permanent lines for whatever activities that an elementary teacher would want there. Also, the bathrooms are not going to be kid-sized bathrooms now. They're going to be adult-sized bathrooms, those two public bathrooms. And I feel like I am regretting that I did not do my due diligence on really looking at the big picture of this before we did that vote. And I think that there are some real issues here with having this gymnasium in the middle of the building. And I know you've done just exactly what we asked you to do, and I appreciate that. But I'm feeling that this is problematic.
I'm feeling like I should have been back at work 15 minutes ago, so I'm gonna try and duck out, but before I do, I would just say that I've gotten a lot of feedback about this in the last 15 years, honestly. And it's consistently been that we need to provide another space, whether it's by people who are looking for DBA or parents, concerned about scheduling. There's a lot of people who have taken a lot of time to express their concerns that we do this. So I don't see this in the least bit as problematic. We've got curtains, we've got movable walls. To say that a space is too big seems illogical to me when we can make it smaller. So I still think that we would be penny wise and pound foolish not to do this. And I continue to think that this is an important thing to do for the community.
Thank you for staying extra minutes
Yes.
today, Ron, but feel free to excuse yourself
Yeah,
whenever you need to. I want to repeat a piece that Nick had talked about, the design earlier. Everyone's personal perception is going to be different. I do see this gym on the back side of the school against Hively Street runs behind it, which is not a picturesque view out that front. So I do see this gymnasium as being on the back of the school. I do like that the classrooms were prioritized for natural light and for outdoor access. I am curious what it would take to have a small space. Like I'm not imagining a big gym or even a second gym, but I'm imagining a second early childhood recreation room space that would be ideal for those smaller activities that Aaron described. And I'm curious if we did have what it takes to make that possible, I'm wondering where that could best fit in this design. And maybe we don't have an answer for that today, but it's just a question that I have.
Some of the details, the size of the commons, the how the seating works, how the flow of students works for eating, how that works with your coursework, and if they go to use the gym for playground or after eating or classwork. Some of that is still for us to be vetted out with the staff and to really understand the intricacies of how that works. And I guess I would love to see, and I'm not sure if we've gotten any of the homework sheet back yet from the physical education teacher. You know, like what is believed to be the appropriate size and what that space kind of has for amenities and how that could be integrated into some of the space here. You know, like some of the things that pop into my head that could be opportunities would be, you know, the commons. Could the commons be a flex space where, you know, I've done plenty of schools where the gymnasium is the commons, where they use the gym to eat in. And that is what you do now, is you use the gym to eat in it. So my question would be is, you know, could it flex and be a smaller physical education space, but then expand to be a larger commons? That could be an opportunity where maybe part of it is, you know, made a little bit more for indoor activities and part of it is made more for the, you know, the lunch hour. But then during a big public event, it all opens up as part of the commons. Just in not having to make another additional space within that, because the floor plan has grown, you know, in square footage, which is adding cost. So if we add more program and we take away the flexibility of double using spaces, we are going to continue to add more program, which means even more cost beyond what I had originally thought of. As far as there was I think Carol had mentioned like the bathrooms being different size. The only thing that's different about the bathrooms is more toilets. It is not different than how it would have been done specifically before. And so that there's not, like in my view, there's not a lot of additional things other than the things that I went through that make it unique to having it be competition gymnasium.
To the restroom comment too, I would say the only additional restrooms we're adding is this bank right here. All of the rest of them that we're showing would need to be required per code anyway, because we are trying to double up with the restrooms being used for an educational purpose and the restrooms being used for an assembly purpose. And so it's really just a few extra fixtures that we are looking at adding by having this be the competition facility.
So the first and second graders will have restrooms that have appropriate sized toilets for them to use and lower sinks for them to be able to use?
The first and second grade would have normal sized toilets. We would always put normal size for first and second grade. Typically, we only do the short toilets for the pre-K and kindergarten students. So that, and I could even probably argue that maybe pre-K and kindergarten should have normal height, just because that's everywhere else that they would be at in their entire.
I'm sorry to interrupt. No, I'm sorry. My 4-year-old can't get up on the toilet by himself on a full-size toilet without literally putting his hands on there and gripping the seat.
Mm-hmm.
No, you can't put adult-sized toilets in that age bracket. You can't. And the short height toilet is fine for first and second graders. They're max 4 foot tall. That's a really tall second grader, but they'd be fine on a shorter toilet. They'd probably prefer to be on a shorter toilet, so their legs aren't dangling off the ground.
Okay.
And you can't see the face in the room, but I'll say what the elementary principals are doing, which is shaking their head like, no, you can't do full-size toilets, but in that space for those
Yeah,
preschool.
we would do, correct. We would
Kindergarten.
do the short toilets in those spaces. Yes,
Right, but if you're gonna put them one place, you have to make it accessible for them everywhere. We can't have the only toilets that fit them correctly be in that one section of the building.
so you're suggesting that there needs to be toilets for the smaller students in all other areas of the school? Is that what you're saying?
Isn't that logical? That the building is built for the students that use it?
So there is additional toilets that would be family-sized toilets where we could add toilets that are right off of the commons that would allow for shorter toilets. So that it would be our typical strategy would be to have an available toilet that is kind of spread throughout for that. I would not, again, put short toilets in all of the toilets throughout the whole school. For this design.
Isn't that sacrificing the elementary students, their experience for the usage of this gym though?
But Nick, I think one thing that I heard, and I don't want to get too detail oriented, because as Nick and Patty mentioned, a lot of program needs are going to be discussed with building staff in the week to come. I heard you say, Nick and Patty, that when you are building a building, you talked about typical amenities that you usually use. Did I hear you incorrectly?
No, that was correct. Yep.
Okay. So toilets are top of mind. We can just leave it at that, of making sure that needs are met throughout the building. In regards to other parts of the project, is there anything that has not been said aloud today that needs to be addressed before we wrap up our conversation? Because I do want to be mindful. I know that Emergent and Tom had allowed for 1 hour and we're past that now. So before they have to hang up, is there anything different that we haven't already said that needs to be?
I'm gonna go back to the safety standpoint. The recommendations from the government following Sandy Hook, following some of the worst tragedies in the US in our history. We're talking about access and how people are allowed into the building, how they can move throughout the building. This gym being a central facet of this building and not being utilized for the students that are using the building goes against everything that document is telling us we should be doing. And I'm gonna full stop there. The government is telling us the safest thing we can do for our kids is to make sure that people can't get in and around this building while they're there. We're not doing that in this schematic. This gym can't be centrally located. And I understand that's gonna change the footprint. I understand that's gonna change the architecture, the work that's already been done. But we gotta think worst case scenario, not decor a nice scenario. Because the worst case could happen. This gym needs to be separate, and I'm gonna keep advocating that it needs to be a separate part of this building. Its own separate entrance and emergency exits to ensure the safety of our children.
Okay. Nick and Patty, thank you for your time today. Tom, thank you for joining us. As was mentioned before, meetings will happen next week with teachers. And we'll look to hear more from you as you hear back from teachers and best meeting the needs of our youngest learners and our community. So thanks so much.
You bet.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
See you guys.
Okay, I'll call the meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming.